The text came in at 2:17 a.m. I was lying in bed next to my fiancée, both of us supposedly asleep, when her phone lit up the dark room like a neon sign of betrayal. The blue glow cut through the darkness, casting shadows across her peaceful face, the same face that had smiled at me over dinner just hours earlier. "Can't wait to be inside you again tomorrow." The words burned into my retinas. My blood turned to ice, every muscle in my body going rigid as stone. The bedroom suddenly felt arctic cold, despite the summer heat. I could hear my heartbeat thundering in my ears, drowning out the soft hum of the air conditioner. The message wasn't from me. I stared at the ceiling, my heart hammering against my ribs, while the woman I was supposed to marry in 3 months breathed softly beside me. Completely peaceful, like she hadn't just destroyed everything with one careless notification. I could have woken her up, could have demanded explanations, could have started screaming and throwing things like any normal man would do. Instead, I did something that would change both our lives forever. I took a photo of that message. Then I got up, walked to my home office, and started planning the most methodical dismantling of a cheating woman's life that you've ever heard. She thought I was weak, thought I'd never leave, thought she could lie to my face, and I'd just take it because I needed her more than she needed me. She was about to discover that the quiet, trusting contractor she'd taken for granted had ice water running through his veins when betrayed. That behind the work boots and calloused hands was a mind that could plan like a general and execute like a surgeon. She was about to learn that the most dangerous men aren't the ones who yell and threaten. They're the ones who go completely silent and start making lists. But let me back up 12 hours to when this nightmare started, because every man needs to know the warning signs I ignored. "Working late again, babe?" Big client presentation. Chelsea kissed my cheek as I walked through the door of our apartment, her lips feeling like poison against my skin now that I knew where they'd been. The familiar scent of her perfume, vanilla and jasmine, made my stomach turn. She was already reaching for her phone that had been buzzing nonstop since I got home, the sound like fingernails on a chalkboard. It was Thursday, the 4th emergency work meeting this week. Each lie had been delivered with the same bright smile, the same casual confidence of someone who thought they were smarter than everyone around them. Something felt wrong. Not just wrong, rotten. Like the moment you realize the foundation of a house has been compromised and the whole structure is about to collapse. Not just the frequency of these late nights, but the way she'd been acting lately. More distant, more secretive. Her eyes darted away when I looked at her directly. Her laugh sounded forced, brittle. Her fingers drummed nervously against her phone case, the same nervous tell she'd had since college when she was hiding something. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months. The wedding was 12 weeks away. Invitations sent, venue booked, my entire savings account emptied to give her the perfect day she'd been planning since she was 12. But the woman standing in my kitchen didn't look like someone excited to marry me. Her eyes darted away when I looked at her directly. Her laugh sounded forced, brittle. Her fingers drummed nervously against her phone case, the same nervous tell she'd had since college when she was hiding something. She looked like someone with a secret, a big one. The kind that destroys lives and leaves wreckage in its wake. "Which restaurant?" I asked casually. Her hand froze on her phone like she'd been caught stealing. The color drained from her face, leaving her looking pale and guilty under the harsh kitchen lighting. "What? You mentioned the team was grabbing dinner during the presentation prep." "Oh." She turned away, busying herself with gathering her things, but I could see her hands shaking slightly. "We're just ordering pizza to the office." The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly it was almost impressive. Almost. If I hadn't been watching her face, hadn't seen the micro-expression of panic that flashed across her features before she recovered. I nodded, but 15 years of construction work had taught me to recognize when something was structurally unsound. This felt like a building about to collapse. "I'll probably be really late," she continued, not meeting my eyes. "Don't wait up." She was out the door before I could respond, leaving me standing in our kitchen with a gut feeling that everything I thought I knew about my life was about to change. I tried to ignore it, Tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. But at 11:30 p.m., when I drove past her office building and saw the parking garage completely empty, I knew. At midnight, when I found her car at Maverick's bar across town, I knew. And when I walked inside and saw her in a corner booth with Eric from her MBA program, the same Eric she'd been texting about school projects, I definitely knew. They weren't discussing business strategies. They were devouring each other like starving animals, her hands tangled in his hair, his mouth on her neck. The same neck I'd kissed goodbye that morning, the same mouth that had told me she loved me over breakfast. The betrayal hit me like a physical punch to the gut. The air left my lungs in a rush, and for a moment I thought I might vomit right there on the restaurant floor. My hands started shaking, not from anger, but from the pure shock of watching 4 years of love and trust evaporate in 30 seconds. But something strange happened as I stood there watching them. The initial shock crystallized into something else, something colder, something calculating. I pulled out my phone and started recording. My hands steady now, my breathing controlled. Because if there's one thing construction taught me, it's that when you're dealing with structural damage, you document everything before you start tearing things down. I didn't make a scene, didn't storm over and confront them, didn't announce my presence at all. Instead, I documented everything. Video of them together, photos of their body language, screenshots of the location and timestamp. Evidence. Because if there's one thing construction taught me, it's that when you're dealing with structural damage, you need proof before you start demolition. If you've ever had that gut feeling that something was wrong but everyone told you that you were paranoid, hit subscribe. Trust your instincts. I drove home and waited. She walked in at 1:47 a.m., humming softly under her breath, some song I didn't recognize. Probably something Eric had been playing. Her lips were slightly swollen, her hair mussed despite her attempts to fix it in the car. She was glowing with the satisfaction of someone who thought they'd gotten away with murder. "How was the presentation prep?" I asked from the couch, my voice steady as granite. "Exhausting," she laughed, the sound grating against my nerves like sandpaper. She wasn't even trying to look guilty, that's how confident she was in her deception. Eric kept making these jokes that had everyone cracking up. "You know how he is." I knew exactly how he was. I just watched him with his tongue down my fiancée's throat. "I'm beat," she continued, already heading toward the bedroom like this was just another normal evening. Shower and straight to bed for me. The casual dismissal. The complete lack of remorse. The way she could look me in the eye and lie without flinching. It was almost impressive in its sociopathic efficiency. I sat there until 3 a.m., staring at the videos on my phone and trying to process how 4 years of love and 8 months of engagement planning had led to this moment. Then her phone buzzed with that message that would end everything, and I realized something that changed my entire approach to this situation. She didn't just cheat on me. She disrespected me. She thought I was too weak, too grateful, too desperate to ever call her out. She thought she could lie to my face forever because I needed her more than she needed me. She was about to learn how catastrophically wrong she was. But I wasn't going to react like an emotional child. I was going to respond like a man with a plan. The next morning, I did something that probably saved my life. Instead of confronting Chelsea immediately, I got up early and went to see my lawyer. Not a divorce lawyer, we weren't married yet, but the attorney who'd helped me incorporate my construction business 3 years earlier. "I need to protect my assets," I told him, sliding the photos across his desk, "and I need to do it quietly." He looked at the evidence and whistled low. "How much are we talking about?" "Joint checking account with about 40 grand. Savings with another 60. She's on everything because we were getting married." "Not anymore, I'm guessing." "Definitely not anymore." Within 2 hours I'd moved my money to a new account she had no access to. Changed the passwords on all my business accounts. Removed her name from anything that mattered. Then I went home and acted like nothing had happened. Chelsea was in the kitchen making coffee, still humming that same song from last night. "Morning, babe," she said brightly. "Sleep well?" I looked at her, really looked at her. Same beautiful face that had made me fall in love 4 years ago. Same smile that used to make my day. Now all I could see was a woman who thought I was stupid enough to marry her while she was fucking someone else. Great, I said. You? Like a baby. She kissed my cheek, and I had to force myself not to pull away. Oh, I might have another late night tonight. This project is really heating up. I'll bet it was. No problem, I said. I'll probably work late too. Big job coming up. That part was true. The biggest job of my life, actually. Dismantling hers. After she left for work, I called a private investigator I'd met through a client. Marcus had caught his wife cheating 2 years earlier and recommended the guy highly. I need everything, I told him. Phone records, location tracking, financial activity. I want to know every lie she's told me for the past 6 months. This is about your fiancée? Soon-to-be ex-fiancé. What's your timeline? I want to present her with evidence at exactly the right moment, when it'll do the most damage to her little fantasy that she's been getting away with this. I like your style. Give me 2 weeks. 2 weeks to gather ammunition. 2 weeks to plan my approach. 2 weeks to become the kind of man who could walk away from a cheating woman and never look back. I had no idea that those 2 weeks would transform me into someone she'd spend the rest of her life regretting she'd lost. Day 3 of my investigation, Chelsea made a fatal mistake. She got comfortable. I came home from work to find her on the couch, feet up, glass of wine in hand, scrolling through her phone with a satisfied smile. Good day? I asked. The best, she said without looking up. Everything's just falling into place, you know? I knew exactly what she meant. Her affair was getting more intense, and she thought she was playing me perfectly. That's great, babe. I'm happy for you. She finally looked up, and something in my tone must have registered because her smile faltered slightly. Are you okay? You've been kind of distant lately. Just focused on work. Big opportunities coming up. What kind of opportunities? For the first time in months, she seemed genuinely interested in my career. Probably because she was realizing she might need to know about my finances for the divorce she was planning. Can't talk about it yet, but it could change everything for us. The lie came out smoothly, and I watched her face light up with greed. That's amazing. We could really use some good news with the wedding expenses. Wedding expenses. She was planning our wedding while fucking another man. The audacity was actually impressive. Speaking of which, I said casually, I've been thinking we should push the date back a few months. Her face went white. What? Why? These new business opportunities, they're going to require a lot of travel, a lot of focus. I don't want to be distracted during the most important day of our lives. I watched her process this, watched her realize that postponing the wedding would interfere with whatever timeline she and Eric had planned. How much longer? She asked carefully. 6 months. Maybe a year. A year? She sat up so fast she almost spilled her wine. Alex, we've already sent invitations. People have made plans. I've ordered my dress. So we'll have an even better wedding when the time is right. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I don't understand why you'd want to wait, unless... Unless what? Unless you're having second thoughts about marrying me. The irony was delicious. She was cheating on me and worried that I was having second thoughts. Of course not, I said smoothly. I just want everything to be perfect for you. That seemed to calm her down, but I could see the wheels turning. She was going to have to adjust her plans, which meant more mistakes, more evidence, more rope to hang herself with. Sometimes the best strategy is giving your enemies exactly what they need to destroy themselves. Subscribe if you understand the long game. Day 7, the private investigator called with preliminary results. Your instincts were right, he said. This has been going on for 3 months. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even a weekend trip to Miami you knew nothing about. Miami? She told you she was at a work conference, right? I remembered that weekend. Chelsea had been gone for 4 days, supposedly at a marketing seminar. I'd worked extra shifts to cover her expenses. How much do you have? Photos, videos, credit card records, text message logs. Enough to bury her in court if you were married. Since you're not, enough to make sure she never sees a penny of your money. Send me everything. You sure you want to see all of it? Some of this is pretty explicit. Send it all. That night, I sat in my home office reviewing 3 months of betrayal in high definition. hotels I'd never been to, restaurants where she'd taken him using money from our joint account, text messages planning their next hookup while I was working 16-hour days to pay for our wedding, and photos. Jesus Christ, the photos. But it wasn't the sexual content that destroyed me. It was the conversations. Messages where she called me sweet but boring. Discussions about how I was too predictable and not ambitious enough. Plans for how she'd transition out of this relationship after the wedding when she could take half my business in the divorce. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to rob me. That's when something inside me turned completely cold. This wasn't about love anymore. This was war. And she just made the mistake of underestimating her enemy. Day 10, I started phase 2 of my plan. Instead of confronting her with evidence, I decided to see how far she'd take the lies. Babe, I said over breakfast, I've been thinking about the wedding postponement. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth. What about it? Maybe we shouldn't wait. Maybe we should move it up instead. The look of pure panic that crossed her face was worth every sleepless night I'd spent planning this moment. Move it up? To when? Next month. I know it's crazy, but I love you so much and I don't want to wait anymore. She set down her fork with shaking hands. Alex, that's impossible. We can't plan a wedding in 4 weeks. Sure we can. We'll keep it small, just family and close friends. What matters is that we're married, right? Right, but she was scrambling now, trying to find an excuse that wouldn't make her look guilty. What about the venue, the catering? My dress needs alterations. We'll figure it out. When you love someone, you make it work. I leaned across the table and took her hand. She was sweating. Chelsea, is there any reason you wouldn't want to marry me next month? The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Of course not, she said finally. I just want everything to be perfect. It will be perfect because it's us. That evening, she had another emergency work meeting. But this time I was ready. Day 12, I followed her. Not to catch her cheating. I already had enough evidence for that. But to see how she'd react when she thought she was cornered. She went straight to Eric's apartment. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from her. Meeting running super late. Probably won't be home until after midnight. Don't wait up. The heart emoji was a nice touch. I texted back, no problem, love you too. Then I drove to the nearest electronics store and bought the most expensive engagement ring they had. $15,000, 3 times what I'd spent on her original ring. When she got home at 1:30 a.m., I was waiting in the living room with the ring box open on the coffee table. Alex? She said, genuine confusion in her voice. What's this? I've been thinking about what you said. About everything being perfect. She approached slowly, like she was walking toward a trap. You deserve the best of everything, I continued, including a ring that shows the world how much I love you. She picked up the box with trembling hands. The diamond was massive, easily visible from across a room. It's beautiful, she whispered. Try it on. She slipped it onto her finger, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. Part of her was genuinely moved by the gesture. Part of her was terrified about what it meant for her plans with Eric. I love you so much, she said, and for a moment, she almost sounded like she meant it. I love you too, more than you'll ever know. That was the truth. I had loved her. Past tense. But the woman I'd loved had never really existed. This woman, the liar, the cheater, the manipulator wearing my ring while planning to destroy me, she was about to learn what happened when you underestimated the wrong man. So, I said casually, should we call your parents in the morning? Tell them about the new wedding date? Her face went white again. The new date? Next month, remember? Our small, intimate ceremony? I watched her realize that she was trapped. Agreeing to marry me quickly would ruin her plans with Eric. Refusing would make me suspicious. Maybe we should think about it a little more, she said carefully. Think about what? Marrying the love of your life. It's a big decision. The biggest, I agreed. The kind of decision that changes everything. I stood up and kissed her forehead, tasting the lies on her skin. Sleep on it, babe, but remember, some opportunities don't come twice. She had no idea how right I was. Day 14, everything came together. The private investigator delivered his final report. Phone records showing 847 text messages and 63 phone calls between Chelsea and Eric in the past month. Hotel receipts totaling $3,200 charged to our joint credit card. Photos of them together at restaurants, bars, and his apartment. And the piece de resistance, a recording of a phone conversation from 2 days earlier where she told Eric about my marriage proposal and they laughed about how pathetic and desperate I was. He actually bought me a bigger ring, she'd said, $15,000. Can you believe it? He's so scared of losing me that he'll do anything. Are you gonna go through with it? Eric had asked. The wedding? Hell no. But I might string him along until I figure out how to get access to his business accounts. He's been landing some big contracts lately. You're evil, Eric had laughed. I love it. He's too trusting, always has been. That's what makes this so easy. Listening to that recording, I felt the last piece of my heart turn to ice. She didn't just want to cheat on me. She wanted to destroy me financially and thought it would be easy because I was too trusting. She was about to learn that trust and stupidity are two very different things. That night, I did something I'd never done in 4 years of being with her. I made dinner reservations at the most expensive restaurant in the city, told her I wanted to celebrate our love and our future together. She agreed enthusiastically, probably thinking it was another sign of how desperate I was to keep her. She had no idea she was walking into the last meal of our relationship. Real men don't just get mad, they get strategic. Subscribe if you understand the difference between reaction and response. The restaurant was perfect, dimly lit with soft jazz playing in the background, the kind of place where conversations stayed private and secrets got buried. The smell of expensive wine and grilled seafood filled the air. I'd specifically requested a corner table where we wouldn't be overheard, theater seats for the performance of a lifetime. Chelsea looked stunning in the dress I'd bought her for Valentine's Day. The black silk hugged her curves perfectly, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. She'd put effort into her appearance tonight, probably thinking this was just another evening of manipulating the man who was too trusting to see what she was really doing. If she only knew she was dressed for her own funeral. This is so romantic, she said, squeezing my hand across the white linen tablecloth. Her engagement ring caught the candlelight, the same ring that had cost me 3 months' salary and countless overtime hours. You've been so sweet lately. Her voice had that purring quality she used when she wanted something. I used to love that sound. Now it made my skin crawl. You deserve sweetness, I said, my voice calm as a lake before a storm. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. Something in my tone made her tilt her head slightly, like a predator sensing danger. Her grip on my hand loosened almost imperceptibly. Are you okay? You seem different. I feel different, like I'm finally seeing things clearly. We ordered wine, appetizers, entrees. I let her talk about her day, her work, her plans for the weekend. Normal conversation from a woman who had no idea her entire world was about to collapse. When the waiter brought our main courses, I pulled out my phone. Before we eat, I said, I want to show you something. Her face lit up. What is it? I turned the phone toward her and pressed play on the video I'd taken at Maverick's bar 2 weeks earlier. The color drained from her face as she watched herself kissing Eric in the corner booth. Alex, I can explain. Shh. I swiped to the next video. Hotel security footage showing them entering a room together. Just watch. Then photos. Dozens of them. Chelsea and Eric at restaurants, in his car, coming out of his apartment building. Her hands were shaking as she reached for her wine glass. There's more, I said conversationally, like I was showing her vacation photos. But I think you get the idea. She opened her mouth to speak, and I held up a hand. I know about Miami. I know about the joint credit card charges. I know about the 847 text messages and 63 phone calls. Each fact hit her like a physical blow. And I know about your conversation with Eric 2 days ago, the one where you called me pathetic and desperate. Her face crumpled. Alex, please. Where you laughed about how easy it was to manipulate me because I'm too trusting. I didn't mean. Where you discussed getting access to my business accounts. Now she was crying, makeup starting to streak. But I wasn't done. The interesting thing, I continued, cutting my steak like nothing unusual was happening, is that you were right about one thing. What? I am too trusting. I trusted you for 4 years. I trusted you with my heart, my money, my future. I took a bite and chewed slowly while she sobbed across from me. But here's what you got wrong. You confused trusting with stupid. They're not the same thing. Alex, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. A stupid man would confront you privately and give you a chance to lie your way out of this. A stupid man would believe whatever sob story you're about to tell me about being confused or scared or whatever. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But a smart man gathers evidence, documents everything, protects his assets, and then he destroys the person who tried to destroy him. The look of pure terror that crossed her face was beautiful. What do you want? She whispered. I want you to take off my ring and put it on the table. With shaking hands, she slipped off the $15,000 diamond and set it between us. I want you to understand that this relationship is over. Not because I'm heartbroken, though I was, but because you showed me exactly who you are. I can change. I want you to know that I've already moved all my money to accounts you can't access, changed all my passwords, removed your name from everything that matters. Her eyes went wide. You can't do that. I can, and I did, legally. See, the advantage of not being married yet is that you have no claim to anything I own. The wedding is canceled. I called the venue this morning, got most of our deposits back. She was hyperventilating now. Where am I supposed to go? I don't know. Eric's place, although based on what I overheard, he's getting pretty tired of this whole situation. You can't just throw me out. Actually, I can. It's my apartment, my name on the lease. You're just a guest who's overstayed her welcome. I signaled for the check, leaving her sobbing into her untouched dinner. There's one more thing. I said as I stood to leave. You told Eric that I was too trusting, that I'd never see this coming because I needed you more than you needed me. She looked up at me with ruined makeup and devastated eyes. You were wrong about that too. I dropped $200 on the table, enough to cover dinner and a generous tip for the waitress who'd had to witness this scene. Enjoy your meal, Chelsea. It's the last one you'll ever have on my dime. I walked out of that restaurant feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, I could hear her calling my name, but I didn't look back. Some bridges are meant to be burned, and some people deserve to watch them burn. The next morning, I changed the locks. By the time Chelsea came home from wherever she'd spent the night, everything that belonged to her was packed in boxes on the front steps. Her clothes, her makeup, her shoes, her decorative pillows, everything that had turned my clean, masculine space into something cluttered and feminine. I was sitting on my couch, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, when she started pounding on the door. Alex, open this door right now. I ignored her. I know you're in there. We need to talk. Still nothing. You can't just throw me out. I live here. Actually, I could, and I had. The pounding continued for another 10 minutes before she finally tried calling. I answered on the 4th ring. Hello? Alex, thank God. Please, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, there is. I made a mistake, but we can work through this. You made multiple mistakes over 3 months. That's not an accident, Chelsea. That's a pattern. I love you. No, you don't. You love what I provided, the security, the money, the way I made your life easier. But you never loved me. That's not true. You called me pathetic and desperate. You laughed about how easy I was to manipulate. You planned to rob me after the wedding. Silence. Those aren't the words of someone who loves me. Those are the words of someone who was using me. I was confused. You were greedy. There's a difference. Alex, please. I'll do anything to fix this. There's nothing to fix. We're done. But the wedding is canceled. I told you that last night. What about everything we built together? We didn't build anything together. I built a life, and you were along for the ride until something better came along. Eric doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care about Eric. This isn't about him. This is about you lying to my face for 3 months while I worked my ass off to pay for a wedding to someone who was planning to destroy me. I wasn't planning to destroy you. Really? Because I have a recording that says otherwise. Another silence. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to take your boxes and leave. You're going to stop calling me, stop texting me, stop trying to contact me in any way. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. I don't have anywhere to go. You should have thought of that before you decided to cheat on your fiancée. Alex. Goodbye, Chelsea. I hung up and blocked her number. Then I poured myself another cup of coffee and got back to reading about how the construction industry was experiencing unprecedented growth. Perfect timing. I had an empire to build. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Subscribe if you refuse to be anyone's backup plan. 6 months later, my life was unrecognizable. The money I'd saved for our wedding, $40,000 that would have been wasted on one day, became the seed capital for the biggest expansion of my construction business in its 3-year history. I hired 2 additional crews, bought new equipment, and started bidding on commercial projects I'd never had the confidence to pursue before. Turns out, when you're not constantly worried about someone else's emotional needs, you have a lot more mental energy to focus on building something real. The first major contract came in August, a luxury office complex that would take 8 months to complete and pay more than I'd made in the previous 2 years combined. By September, I'd been hired for 2 more projects. By October, I'd hired a business manager and moved into a proper office space. By November, I was driving a new truck and living in a downtown loft that cost twice as much as the apartment I'd shared with Chelsea. And every step of the way, I documented it on social media. Not because I wanted her to see, though I knew she was watching, but because I was proud of what I was building. The before and after photos were striking. 6 months earlier, I'd been a decent contractor doing good work for middle-class clients. Now I was running a company that competed for million-dollar projects. The transformation wasn't just professional. I'd started working out seriously, eating better, dressing like someone who belonged in boardrooms instead of just job sites. I looked like a different person. I felt like a different person. I was a different person. The man Chelsea had dismissed as not ambitious enough had built more success in 6 months than she'd achieved in her entire career. And she was watching it all happen through Instagram stories and LinkedIn posts. December brought the private message I'd been expecting. Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I saw your latest project feature in the business journal. I'm really proud of what you've accomplished. I always knew you had it in you. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. No, you didn't. 3 hours later. What do you mean? You told Eric I wasn't ambitious enough, that I was predictable and boring, that I'd never amount to anything more than a basic contractor. I was angry when I said those things. I didn't mean them. You meant them. That's why you were looking for something better. I wasn't looking for something better. I was scared. Of what? Of how much I loved you. Of settling down. Of missing out on experiences. The classic cheater's excuse. Fear of commitment. And did you miss out? I asked. Long pause. Eric and I aren't together anymore. Of course they weren't. Men like Eric don't leave their wives for their affairs. They just enjoy the ego boost until it becomes inconvenient. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you seeing anyone? The question I'd been waiting for. Yes. Is it serious? Serious enough. Another long pause. I miss you. I miss us. I made the biggest mistake of my life, and I think about it every day. I could have been cruel. Could have detailed exactly how much better my life was without her. Could have sent photos of my new place, my new truck, my new girlfriend. Instead, I told her the truth. I don't miss you at all. Alex, I miss the person I thought you were. But that person never existed. You showed me who you really are, and now I can't unsee it. People change. You're right. I changed. I became someone who doesn't accept disrespect from anyone for any reason. I could change too. I'm sure you could. But I'm not interested in waiting around to see if you will. So that's it? 4 years means nothing to you? 4 years means everything to me. It taught me exactly what I don't want in a partner. I sent the message and immediately blocked her number. Then I went back to building the life she'd convinced herself I'd never be capable of creating. 1 year after she told me to go find better, I did exactly that. Not just a better girlfriend, though Sarah was incredible in ways Chelsea had never been, but a better version of myself. I was standing in the conference room of Morrison Development Group, the company I'd built from the ashes of our relationship, looking at architectural plans for a hotel renovation that would make me a millionaire before I turned 30. The same hotel where Chelsea worked as a marketing coordinator. She'd applied for the contract to handle our promotional campaign, submitted a formal proposal to the company I now owned, probably not realizing I was the CEO. The irony was delicious. I could have given her the contract, could have been professional about it. Instead, I wrote a personal response. Thank you for your interest in working with Morrison Development Group. After careful consideration, we've decided to go with a different firm. We're looking for partners who demonstrate reliability, integrity, and the ability to see projects through to completion without getting distracted. We don't believe your company is a good fit for our values. Best of luck with future endeavors. Professional but pointed. She'd know exactly what it meant. 2 days later, I got a voicemail I didn't return. Alex, I know that was you. I know you're behind the rejection. Please call me back. We need to talk about this professionally. The woman who'd planned to rob me blind was now begging for my business. The transformation was complete. She'd gone from thinking she was too good for me to desperately needing my approval. I'd gone from being grateful for her attention to being completely indifferent to her existence. Success really is the best revenge. But this story isn't over yet. Because 3 months later, something happened that proved just how far I'd come and just how far she'd fallen. Real power isn't about getting revenge. It's about reaching a point where they become irrelevant to your happiness. Subscribe if you're building something bigger than your past. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Regional Business Excellence Awards. I'd been nominated for Entrepreneur of the Year for building a $1 million company from scratch in 18 months. The ceremony would be held at the Grand Olympia Hotel, the most prestigious venue in the city. I almost didn't go. Award ceremonies weren't really my thing, and I was busy with 3 major projects that demanded my attention. But Sarah convinced me I should attend. You've earned this recognition, she said. Besides, it's good for business. Half the city's most successful people will be there. She was right. Networking was crucial for the next phase of expansion I had planned. So I rented a tuxedo, bought Sarah a dress that made her look like she belonged on a red carpet, and prepared to spend an evening celebrating accomplishments I'd never imagined possible. I had no idea Chelsea would be there, until I saw her standing near the back of the ballroom as I walked to the stage to accept my award. She was with some man I didn't recognize, wearing a dress that looked expensive, but not quite expensive enough for the crowd she was trying to impress. Our eyes met as I stepped up to the microphone, and I saw something in her expression that made me smile. Pure regret. Complete devastation. The look of someone watching the life she could have had if she'd made different choices. I looked out at an audience of 800 business leaders, politicians, and media representatives and spoke directly to every person who'd ever been underestimated. This award represents more than business success. It represents the power of believing in yourself when no one else will. It's for everyone who was told they'd never amount to anything, who was underestimated, who was written off by people who couldn't see their potential. I paused, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is telling you that you're not good enough. Because that's when you discover what you're really capable of, when you stop trying to prove yourself to people who were never worthy of your effort. The applause was thunderous, a standing ovation that lasted nearly 2 minutes. I looked directly at Chelsea as I raised the crystal trophy. She was crying. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen so many times before. These were the tears of someone who finally understood the magnitude of what she'd lost. After the ceremony, during the networking reception, I felt a hand touch my arm. Alex. I turned to find Chelsea standing behind me, mascara slightly smudged, clutching a champagne glass with white knuckles. Congratulations, she said quietly. You deserve this. Thank you. Sarah was across the room talking to potential clients, giving us a moment of privacy I didn't want but couldn't avoid without making a scene. I need to tell you something, Chelsea continued. You don't need to tell me anything. Please, just listen. I waited, though every instinct told me to walk away. I was wrong, she said, her voice barely audible over the crowd. About everything. About you, about what you were capable of, about what we could have had together. Yes, you were. I see that now. Watching you up there, seeing what you've built, I realize I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. You threw away the version of me that would have put up with your disrespect. That person is gone. I know, and I hate myself for it. Don't hate yourself, Chelsea. Learn from it. She looked surprised by the lack of anger in my voice. I've spent this whole year thinking you'd eventually forgive me, that we'd find our way back to each other. That was never going to happen. I know that now. Seeing you tonight, seeing how you look at her, she glanced toward Sarah. You never looked at me like that. No, I didn't, because I never deserved it. No, you didn't. The honesty seemed to hit her like a physical blow, but she didn't flinch away from it. She's beautiful, Chelsea said, following my gaze to Sarah. She looks at you like she knows how lucky she is. She doesn't take me for granted. I did. Every day. I thought I was the prize. I thought you were lucky to have me. You thought wrong. She nodded, tears flowing freely now. I want you to know that I'm not the same person who hurt you. I've learned. It doesn't matter who you are now. What matters is who you were when it counted. Is there any part of you that could ever forgive me? I looked at her for a long moment. The woman I'd loved for 4 years. The woman I'd planned to marry. The woman who'd shown me that love without respect is worthless. I forgave you months ago, I said finally. Not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying that anger was holding me back from building this. I gestured around the elegant ballroom, at the successful people who now saw me as an equal, at the life I'd created from the ruins of our relationship. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means I'm not letting your choices poison my future. I understand. I hope you find someone who makes you happy, Chelsea. I really do. Just make sure you appreciate them while you have them. I will. And make sure they appreciate you too. Don't settle for someone who takes you for granted the way you took me for granted. She nodded, unable to speak. Goodbye, Chelsea. Goodbye, Alex. I walked away from her for the final time, feeling nothing but gratitude for the woman who'd forced me to discover my own strength. Sarah appeared at my side as I reached the bar. Everything okay? She asked, sliding her arm through mine. Perfect, I said, and meant it. Who was that? Someone from my past who helped me become the man you fell in love with. Sarah looked confused, but she didn't press for details. Some stories don't need to be explained. They just need to be lived. It's been 2 years since Chelsea told me to go find better. I'm writing this from the penthouse office of Morrison Development Group, a company that now employs 47 people and handles 8-figure construction projects across 3 states. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I can see the city skyline I'm helping to reshape, one landmark building at a time. Sarah and I got engaged last month, not because we felt pressure or obligation, but because we couldn't imagine building our futures with anyone else. She said yes before I finished asking the question. The ring cost more than my first truck, but I could afford it without thinking twice. Success had given me the freedom to be generous with the people who deserved it. My phone still gets occasional notifications when certain people view my social media posts. Old habits die hard, apparently. But I don't check anymore. Don't wonder who's watching or what they think about my success. Because I learned something that changed everything. Living well isn't about proving your worth to people who couldn't see it. It's about finding people who never questioned it in the first place. Chelsea taught me that lesson the hard way, but it was the most valuable education I ever received. She showed me what it looked like when someone didn't respect me, which taught me to recognize when someone did. She showed me what it felt like to be taken for granted, which taught me to appreciate being valued. She showed me what happens when you try to build a life with someone who doesn't believe in your potential, which taught me to choose partners who see your possibilities, not just your current circumstances. The man she dismissed as not ambitious enough now owns a company featured in national business magazines. The man she called predictable and boring now travels the country speaking at entrepreneurship conferences. The man she thought was too trusting learned to build a business empire while keeping his heart open to the right person. I don't hate Chelsea. I don't think about her at all anymore. But if I could send her one final message, it would be this: thank you for telling me to go find better. It was the best advice you ever gave me. I found a better business, a better lifestyle, a better version of myself, and eventually a better woman who saw my worth before I had millions in the bank. You thought "go find better" was an insult meant to remind me of my limitations. Instead, it became the mission statement that transformed my entire life. So to every man reading this who's been told he's not good enough, not ambitious enough, not exciting enough, listen carefully. When someone tells you to go find better, don't get angry. Get strategic. Use their low expectations as fuel for your highest achievements. Build something so impressive that they spend the rest of their lives explaining to people how they used to know you back when. Become so successful that their opinion of you becomes irrelevant to your happiness. That's not revenge. That's evolution. And the best part? Once you reach that level, you realize they were never the prize you thought you were fighting for. They were just the motivation you needed to become the prize yourself. When you stop accepting crumbs, you discover you are always worthy of the whole feast. Subscribe if you're ready to build a life so good that your haters become your audience. The greatest revenge is a life so well lived that your enemies become your audience. Hit subscribe if you're ready to turn your setbacks into comebacks.